Isaac Harlan limped into the Interstellar Anthropology 101 lecture hall with his left knee wrapped in an elastic brace and a purpling bruise stretching from mid-thigh to shin. The class had just started, and the room's wide semicircle of seats was already filled with the usual mix of Earth students and their exchange counterparts from the Tri-Federation Academic Unity Program. Isaac's entrance, a few minutes past the hour, barely drew a glance from the humans in the room. The aliens, however, stared. Varnex, a lanky, cerulean-hued student from the planet Talari, leaned forward in its seat. Its neck extended slightly, eyes narrowing with concern. Next to it, Pelin, a short, copper-toned student from the moon Dak Moor, leaned sideways for a clearer view. "Isaac," Varnex said, its voice soft and musical. "You are damaged." Pelin tilted his head. "Did someone attack you?" Isaac dropped his backpack beside the desk and eased into the chair with a wince. "Nah, just soccer. Took a slide tackle wrong." Varnex blinked. "Soccer is the Earth game involving kicking a spherical object." "Yeah, and apparently getting kicked in the leg hard enough to make you limp for a week." Pelin's eyes widened. "You voluntarily participated in this?" Professor Benayer, a 2-meter-tall avian alien with a penchant for tweed jackets, entered through the side door and tapped his claw against the podium. "Settle in, everyone. Today's topic: cross-species empathy in early contact scenarios." Isaac leaned back, grimacing slightly as the chair pressed into his thigh. Varnex didn't look away. "Are you in pain?" "A little," Isaac admitted. "Then why did you not stop the activity?" "Because it was the semi-finals," Isaac said. "And we were down by 1. I wasn't gonna let that slide." He gave a tired grin. "Literally." Varnex whispered something in its native language. Pelin nodded solemnly. Class continued with Professor Benayer projecting a visual timeline of early Grelk human trade relations, but Isaac could feel the alien's eyes flick back to him every few minutes. When the lecture ended, Varnex and Pelin followed him into the hallway. "You should go to the medical center," said Varnex. "I already did. They wrapped the knee, told me to ice it and stay off it when I can. Nothing's broken." Pelin looked horrified. "You suspected bones might be broken and still continued?" Isaac shrugged, walking slowly toward the campus shuttle stop. "I didn't feel anything snap, just a bad hit. Your species is difficult to categorize," Varnex muttered. Isaac chuckled once, then stopped when his leg twinged. "You're telling me." The shuttle arrived, and Isaac limped aboard, sliding into a seat near the back. Pelin and Varnex sat across from him, still watching. 2 days later, he returned to class with a noticeable limp, now accompanied by a set of bruises blooming along his calf and side. The game had ended in a tie, but Isaac had blocked 2 potential goals and earned his team a spot in the finals. He was proud of that. The aliens, however, looked increasingly distressed. Pelin stopped him after class, holding out a small glowing orb. "This is a Grelk pain diffuser. It emits a frequency that calms the nervous system. You should take it." Isaac took it cautiously. "Thanks, but I'm okay, really." "You are not okay," Varnex said. "You are exhibiting symptoms of soft tissue trauma and joint instability. Your gait is uneven. Your expressions of discomfort are frequent." Isaac sighed. "That's just how sports work. Look, I'm not trying to scare you guys. I'm not doing this because I like pain. It's just part of the game." Varnex tilted its head. "Your species finds pain acceptable in pursuit of recreation?" "Not pain exactly," Isaac said. "We just put up with it if the goal is worth it." "And what is the goal?" "To beat the other team." Pelin shook his head. "You are terrifying." The week of the finals, Isaac's knee improved enough that he ditched the brace, but the bruise on his thigh had turned a deep, mottled blue. Varnex and Pelin insisted on walking with him to every class, despite his insistence that he could manage. They showed up uninvited to the soccer field on the day of the final match, standing just beyond the sidelines with their arms folded and expressions unreadable. Isaac noticed them midway through warm-up and jogged over. "You guys didn't have to come. We are observing," Varnex said. "For research. Also to make sure you don't collapse and die," Pelin added. Isaac laughed, then winced. "I'm good, I promise." The game was brutal. The other team was aggressive, and Isaac took another hit early on, this time to his shoulder. He hit the ground hard, rolled once, and got back up, wiping dirt from his face. The pain was sharp but tolerable. He kept playing. At halftime, he sat on the bench, breathing hard. His shoulder throbbed. Coach Rinaldi crouched beside him. "You good to stay in?" Isaac flexed the arm slowly. It moved, but not happily. "Yeah, I can finish." "You sure?" "Yeah." The second half was worse. At one point, Isaac collided mid-air with another player going for a header. He landed on his side, the same side from the earlier hit. He got up slower this time. By the end of the game, his team had won 3-2. Isaac's jersey was stained with sweat and dirt, and he was visibly favoring his right side. Varnex and Pelin approached as the team celebrated. "You are not okay," Varnex stated. Isaac sat on the grass, leaning on his good side. "We won. At what cost?" "There's a med tent. I'll get checked." Pelin crouched beside him. "Does it feel broken?" "I don't think so. Just sore." But once in the med tent, the athletic trainer raised an eyebrow at the swelling along Isaac's ribs and shoulder. "We're sending you in for imaging. Can't tell if it's a fracture without a scan." They transported him by shuttle to the campus clinic. Varnex and Pelin came along, despite Isaac's protests. 2 hours later, the doctor returned with the results. "Fractured rib. It's not displaced, but you'll need to take it easy. No sports for at least 6 weeks." Isaac nodded, already bracing for the discomfort of breathing with a rib injury. "Got it." Varnex sat stiffly in the chair. "You played with a fractured rib." "I didn't know it was fractured," Isaac said quietly. "Thought it was just bruised." Pelin was gripping the chair arm. "You ran. You jumped. You collided with others." Isaac looked at them both. "I'm not trying to impress anyone. This is just how we play. Sometimes we get hurt. When we do, we deal with it." Varnex leaned forward. "On Tulare, if one of us is injured during training, we stop immediately. The instructors are obligated to intervene." "That's smart," Isaac said. "Maybe we're just a little stubborn." Pelin's voice was quiet. "Or reckless." Isaac didn't argue. The recovery was slow. He couldn't sleep properly for the first week, every breath sending a sharp pain through his chest. The clinic gave him a support wrap and instructions to avoid stairs, impacts, or heavy lifting. Varnex brought him lunch every day. Pelin organized a rotating schedule of classmates to help him get to lectures. The aliens were still baffled by his injury, but they didn't let him go through it alone. 3 weeks in, Isaac was finally able to walk without wincing. He joined his classmates in the lab for a group project. When he rolled up his sleeve to adjust the microscope, the fading bruise on his shoulder caught the light. Another alien student, a tall, green-scaled being named Marn, pointed. "That mark, was it from combat?" Isaac smiled weakly. "Soccer." Marn looked from the bruise to his face. "And you were permitted to continue after sustaining that?" "It was the finals." Marn turned to Varnex. "Is this common?" Varnex exhaled slowly. "Apparently." Isaac adjusted the focus on the microscope. "It's not about wanting to get hurt. It's about wanting to finish what you start. Sometimes that means pushing through pain. Sometimes it means knowing when to stop." Pelin from across the table nodded. We are still learning. But you should know next time you sustain an injury, we will drag you to the clinic ourselves if you don't go. Isaac laughed, shaking his head. Fair. By the end of the semester, the bruises had faded, the rib pain was gone, and Isaac walked without a limp. He didn't return to the field that season, but he didn't mind. During the final lecture, Professor Benayer brought up an archived video of early human explorers climbing Mount Everest. He paused the footage and gestured at the struggling climbers on screen. This is what fascinates the galaxy about your kind. Not the strength, not the endurance, but the willingness to suffer for reasons that are not immediately logical. To reach a summit simply because it exists. Isaac sat quietly, his side no longer aching, as Varnex looked over at him. Soccer is your mountain? Sometimes, Isaac said. Pelin shook his head. I prefer puzzles. Isaac smiled. Less bruising. The class ended, and students began to file out. Marn approached Isaac once more, looking him over. You fully recovered? Yeah. Took a while. Marn nodded, then looked confused. And you intend to play again? Isaac stood, gathering his things. Yeah. Next season. Marn opened his mouth, closed it, then turned to Varnex. Terrifying. Isaac chuckled. It's just soccer. No big deal. The recreation field behind the East Campus greenhouse was barely more than a patch of uneven grass and faded boundary lines. But it had become a kind of neutral zone between species. There were no official games here, no referees, no spectators beyond the occasional curious passerby. Just students, human and alien, trying to figure each other out through motion. Isaac, still under restriction from full contact play, stood at midfield with a deflated ball under one arm and a slow-growing impatience in his bones. The medtech had cleared him for light activity, no sprinting, no collisions, and definitely no headers, but he needed to move. Across from him, Varnex flexed its elongated fingers, trying to mimic the stance Isaac had demonstrated earlier. It looked like an air dancer mid-sneeze. Your center of gravity is too high, Isaac said, tapping his own hips. You want to stay low. Think about reacting, not initiating. I am not accustomed to balancing on legs with such limited surface area, Varnex said, adjusting its weight awkwardly. My species evolved in low gravity. We use tail pressure to stabilize. Right? But since you don't have a tail here, try bending your knees more. They were joined by 3 other aliens, Kilo from the aquatic moon Aruvan, a translucent being named Oryx whose physiology defied most of Isaac's understanding of anatomy, and a towering, silent insectoid called Feth who had not spoken a single word since arriving on Earth but had shown up to every rec game with unnerving consistency. Pelin sat on the grass nearby, arms crossed, observing. Why do you insist on teaching them this game? He asked. They don't even have feet. Neither did half the kids in my middle school league, Isaac replied. They used prosthetics and still beat the rest of us flat. It's not about anatomy. It's about learning the rhythm. That's vague. Yeah, so is jazz, but people still dance to it. Kilo raised a fin. Can we begin? Isaac dropped the ball. All right, no tackles, no aerials, just passing, positioning, and timing. Feth, you're on defense. Varnex, midfield. Kilo and Oryx up front. Feth clicked once, then stepped into position. The game began with a few limp passes and a lot of confused footwork. Oryx tried controlling the ball with a forward appendage that promptly retracted in embarrassment. Kilo used a hopping motion that somehow moved the ball with alarming speed but zero control. Varnex fared better, managing a pass that rolled true for almost a meter before veering off into a clump of dandelions. Isaac jogged to retrieve it. His side twinged, reminding him he wasn't supposed to do that. Easy, Pelin called. You're not invincible. Feels like it sometimes, Isaac muttered, tossing the ball back into play. An hour passed before they found a rhythm. Kilo developed a dribbling technique that involved bouncing the ball between their knees like a fish trying to play hacky-sack. Oryx floated briefly when excited, which was technically against the no aerials rule, but Isaac let it slide. Feth remained a defensive wall. No one got past them. Not once. Eventually, the sun dipped below the greenhouse roof, casting elongated shadows across the field. Isaac sat down cross-legged, sweat clinging to his back, breath shallow but satisfied. "Better," he said. "Much better." "I still do not comprehend the objective," Varnex admitted, settling beside him. "You're trying to move the ball into the goal without letting the other side stop you." "Yes, but why?" "Because it feels good when you do." Kilo flopped onto the grass. "This would be deeply inefficient as a means of resource acquisition." "It's not about resources," Isaac said. "It's about coordination, strategy, timing, and sometimes proving to yourself you can do something hard even when it hurts." "You find this enjoyable?" "Yeah. When it works, it's like every part of your body is thinking the same thought." "That sounds terrifying," said Oryx, hovering just above the turf. "I'm starting to think humans are powered by unresolved tension and stubbornness," Pelin added. "That's not entirely wrong," Isaac replied. Later that evening, Isaac stood under a cold shower in the dorm's communal washroom, rinsing off grass and alien pollen. His ribs ached, but in a dull, manageable way. He pressed gently against the healing bone, testing its limits. The trainer had said another week before anything more than walking drills. He planned to shave off 3 days, maybe 4. The following afternoon, Professor Benayer invited a guest speaker from the diplomatic corps, a Cyrillian negotiator named Tar, who had once mediated a ceasefire between 2 mining colonies using only a stringed instrument and a bowl of fermented root paste. Tar addressed the class with the calm authority of someone who had seen cultures fracture over the shape of a chair. "Human adaptability is not just a matter of biology," they said. "It is a psychological orientation. You operate under a premise that failure is temporary, that discomfort is transitory. This is not common." Isaac shifted slightly in his seat, catching the glance of Varnex beside him. "Consider this," Tar continued. "When denied resources, most species optimize for conservation. Humans, instead, attempt escalation. You train in adverse conditions. You simulate failure to practice recovery. You expose yourselves to artificial danger for amusement." There was a pause. "Is that about the game?" Kilo asked. "It's about everything," Tar replied. After class, Isaac walked with Varnex past the sculpture garden, where wind chimes made from recycled metal rang softly in the breeze. "You don't have to keep showing up to practice," he said. "I know it's weird for you." "It is not weird," Varnex said. "It is inefficient, but also interesting." "You starting to like it?" "I do not understand liking yet, but I find myself anticipating the next session." Isaac smiled, then winced as a breath caught awkwardly in his chest. "Still hurts?" "A little." "You continue to function while injured. That is not just resilience. It is intention." "That's one way to see it." "May I ask a question not related to soccer?" "Sure." "Why do you keep going when you are told to stop?" Isaac paused. They reached a bench and sat. "Because sometimes we stop too soon. And sometimes the people telling us to stop don't understand what we're chasing." Varnex stared at the ground. "I once visited a low-pressure research dome on Tauville with my sibling. Gravity there is artificial, uneven. We practiced movement drills. I fell repeatedly and was told to discontinue. I obeyed. I have always obeyed." Isaac looked over. "Did you want to keep going?" "Yes. But I was afraid my persistence would be interpreted as malfunction." "Here?" Isaac said, pointing at the field beyond the hill, We call that grit. Varnex nodded slowly. I think I am beginning to understand. 2 weeks later, the rec field was less a field and more a proving ground. Kilo had mastered a bounce-pass technique that left scorch marks on the turf. Oryx stopped floating. Feth began to vocalize, a low chittering sound that seemed to indicate approval. Varnex made a pass from midfield that arced just right, landing soft at Isaac's feet. He tapped it back with a grin. No pain, just joy. One more round, Isaac called. Pelin groaned from the sidelines. You're all going to rupture something. Only if we're lucky, Isaac shouted back. The ball moved again, fast and unpredictable, like a language none of them spoke fluently, but all of them wanted to learn. It had been 17 days since Isaac's last full-field match, 9 since the final checkup that cleared him to resume normal activity, and just under an hour since Varnex had kicked him in the ankle entirely by accident, and with what it swore was gentle enthusiasm. Isaac sat now on the edge of the university clinic's examination bed, sock rolled halfway down, foot propped up on a padded stool. That's not broken, the nurse said, peering at the swelling. But you've got some nice inflammation. We'll ice it here for 20 minutes and wrap it before you go. Elevate it tonight. You know the drill. Isaac nodded. Feels like I should start carrying a punch card. The nurse chuckled and handed him a cold pack. 3 more visits and you get a free knee brace. When the nurse left, Varnex hovered by the doorway, arms folded so tightly across its torso that its upper limbs twitched with restraint. I did not intend to strike you. I know. The trajectory was miscalculated due to a lapse in spatial awareness. I believed the ball was closer. You're not the first person to aim at the ball and catch my leg instead. At least you didn't have cleats on. Varnex stepped into the room slowly. You did not cry out. It surprised me more than anything. I believe I may have caused ligament strain. I don't think it's that serious. How is your pain rating? About a 4 when I flex it, maybe a 2 at rest. Varnex paused as if weighing those numbers against a larger equation. Your tolerance remains troubling. It's not tolerance. It's experience. That is equally troubling. Isaac adjusted the ice pack. I've been hurt worse. This is fine. The door opened again and Pelin stepped in, holding a small container. I brought you nutrient cubes. They're supposed to support soft tissue repair, or at least reduce the appearance of cellular fatigue. Isaac took the container and opened it. Inside were 6 translucent blocks, each pulsing faintly in color. These look radioactive. They are not. I selected the mildest flavor profile. Varnex examined the label. These are formulated for DAC-more physiology. They may cause gastrointestinal urgency in humans. Isaac handed them back. Appreciate the thought. Pelin sat on the counter beside the sink, one leg crossed. Varnex believes it permanently maimed you. Iced ankle, not amputation. Still, Varnex said, I am reevaluating my participation in terrestrial sports. You're not quitting, are you? I am considering alternate activities with lower risk of inflicting interpersonal damage. You kicked my foot. That's not damage. That's Tuesday. Pelin leaned back against the wall. Your species registers trauma with such casual dismissal it borders on pathology. Isaac rotated his ankle slightly, throbbed but didn't catch. We're not dismissing it. We're just used to bouncing back. Your medical system encourages this? Not really. They tell us to rest. Then we argue about how much. Varnex paced once, then turned. I do not wish to be the reason you require another brace. You're not. I've sprained this ankle before. It's a repeat offender. Perhaps it should be suspended. It's already on probation. Pelin stared at him. You are making jokes while your foot swells. It's how we cope. With what? Everything. A nurse returned, rewrapped his ankle with elastic tape, and gave him instructions about rest, elevation, and ibuprofen dosages. Isaac nodded, repeated it back correctly, and promised not to do anything stupid for at least 48 hours. Outside the clinic, the late afternoon sun lit the campus in a soft amber hue. Students moved between buildings in clusters, some still in athletic gear, others carrying instrument cases, lab kits, or sketchbooks. Isaac leaned against the railing of the nearest bench while Varnex and Pelin flanked him like overly concerned bodyguards. "You may sit," Varnex offered. "I'm fine standing. Your weight distribution is uneven, just favoring the good side." Pelin squinted at him. "You limp less when distracted. That implies your pain is partially cognitive." "Pain's always cognitive. I meant selective." "That too." "Fascinating," Varnex said, watching a group of students pass. "You are not the only injured human today." "No." Garrett dislocated his thumb during volleyball. "And Mia got a concussion from falling off a unicycle." "Why was she on a unicycle?" "She's working on a project about circus arts and kinetic balance." Pelin blinked. "Your species is impossible to categorize. Try alphabetical. You find danger recreational." "No, we find activity that sometimes involves danger recreational." "Big difference." "Not to the emergency room." Varnex tilted its head. "Why do you insist on returning to participation after injury?" "Because the alternative is sitting still and watching everyone else live. There are safe hobbies." "Sure. But they don't all make your heart race." "You wish to feel that?" "Yeah. It reminds me I'm still in it." "In what?" "Life." Pelin looked away briefly, watching the wind pick up a discarded thermofilm wrapper and send it tumbling across the quad. "Our instructors warned us about anthropocentric rationalizations. I thought they exaggerated." Varnex unfolded its arms. "I thought they underestimated." Isaac adjusted his weight again. "You want to hear something weird?" "Always. When I was laid up with the rib thing, I missed the ache more than the rest." "You missed the pain?" "No. The ache. The reminder I'd done something that mattered to me, even if it hurt." Varnex was quiet. Then, after a long moment, said, "Today, when I struck you, I feared you would retaliate." "Seriously?" "Yes. I had read that some human sports include physical confrontation after fouls." "Yeah, hockey. And that's more theatrical than personal." "But you did not retaliate. You laughed. Because your face looked like you'd swallowed a live battery." "I was attempting to process shame and panic simultaneously." "You looked like you were buffering." Pelin stood. "If you're well enough to joke, you're well enough to limp with supervision." "Where are we going?" "Observation deck. The meteor shower starts in 40 minutes. You can rest your foot while watching space rocks burn in the atmosphere." "Sounds perfect." They helped him down the steps, Varnex occasionally glancing at his taped ankle as if it might detonate. The walk was slow but steady. The ache stayed manageable. The path curved around the arboretum and up a gentle slope that led to the observation circle, where a few students had already gathered with blankets and thermos mugs. Isaac settled on a bench with his leg propped on a folded jacket. The sky above faded into velvet blue. Someone passed around a container of hot spice juice. Pelin declined, citing incompatible biochemistry. Varnex sniffed it and tentatively accepted a sip. The first meteor streaked across the sky, brilliant and silent. "This is preferable to kicking humans," Varnex said. "Agreed," Isaac replied, leaning back. More meteors followed, each one a brief flare against the sky. The group around them murmured appreciatively. Someone played soft instrumental music from a speaker tucked under a blanket. Isaac's ankle pulsed in time with his heartbeat, but the pain had softened. Not gone, but quiet. You're staying on the team? Pelin asked. Yeah. Might switch positions, though. Something less kickable. Like coach? Tempting. Varnex watched another meteor blaze overhead. I will continue. Playing? Yes, but I will practice aim. And I'll try to keep my legs out of the way. Pelin shook his head. You're both absurd. And yet, Isaac said, you're here. I am. And I intend to remain until you limp less. Deal. They sat together in silence as the sky lit up in scattered bursts of light, each one burning fast and fading clean. By the end of the hour, Isaac's foot had gone stiff, but not worse. Pelin handed him a walking stick someone had carved from a broken drone wing. It wasn't necessary, but it helped. Varnex adjusted its scarf, a gift from Mia after their last group project. Will you play again next week? Depends on the swelling. But yeah, if I can, I will. Then I will join you. I will aim lower. I appreciate that. As they made their way back down the hill, Isaac limping slightly less than before, Pelin muttered something under his breath. What was that? I said, if you fall again, I'm not carrying you. You're heavy. Fair. But if I do, I'll try to land on the good side. Which one is that? Whichever one's not currently iced. They laughed, the sound carrying ahead of them into the night, past the darkened fields and glowing windows, carried by the same stubborn wind that had never quite stopped moving.